My name is Leah, and this is my story. I was 34 when I felt my life start to slip away from me. Daniel and I had been married for over a decade, raising our two beautiful children, Lily and Ethan, in what I believed was a strong, loving family. But as time passed, tiny cracks in our relationship started to appear. Daniel would stay out later than usual, miss family dinners, and dodge any conversation about our future together. I noticed it, of course, but I tried to brush it off as stress from his demanding job. I convinced myself that everything was fine, that he was just under pressure. But deep down, I knew something was wrong. Before we dive deeper into Leah's story, please take a moment to subscribe to our channel. If you've ever faced difficult moments in your relationships or found yourself questioning the people you trust, Leah's journey might resonate with you. Join us at Speak Well Academy, where we share heartfelt stories and offer insights to help you navigate life's challenges. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss out on content that could make a difference. One evening, Daniel came home hours late, his absence stretching into the night. I had waited up, watching the clock, each tick echoing the dread building inside me. When he finally walked in, I tried to keep my voice steady, to ask calmly, "Where were you?" But he shrugged, muttering something about work, his tone cold, dismissive. He wouldn't even look at me. I wanted to press him, demand answers, but a strange mixture of fear and denial held me back. I felt an instinct to ignore the warning signs, to cling to the belief that everything was okay, that he was still the man I knew. Days passed, and with each passing day, he seemed further out of reach. I could feel the walls of my life closing in, the familiar warmth of my home turning cold and distant. I began to feel like an outsider in my own life, watching as everything crumbled. I knew that something was breaking between us, but I was too scared to face the truth. One rainy Sunday, Daniel left his phone on the kitchen counter. A message notification lit up the screen, and my heart skipped. I told myself to ignore it, that it was nothing, but my hands moved as if on their own, reaching for the phone. My fingers trembled as I opened his messages. There, staring back at me, was the undeniable proof. A string of affectionate texts to another woman. I felt my world collapse, my chest tightening as tears filled my eyes. I read the words again and again, hoping it was a mistake. I felt betrayed, not just by Daniel, but by the very foundation of our life together. That night, I confronted him, barely able to contain my pain and disbelief. But instead of remorse, he looked at me with cold disdain, accusing me of snooping and calling me paranoid. His harsh words pierced deeper than I thought possible, and I realized then that I was alone, truly and utterly alone. The days that followed were a blur of numbness and disbelief. Daniel's coldness grew, his silence louder than any words he could have spoken. When he was home, he was a ghost, moving through our home as if we were strangers. Nights became unbearable, filled with the sound of my own broken heart as I lay awake, wondering how we had arrived at this place. Our conversations had become nothing more than tense exchanges. Every room felt heavy with words left unsaid. I tried to carry on for our children's sake, but each smile I forced felt like a betrayal of my own pain. Reaching out to family and friends felt impossible. I didn't want them to see the cracks in my life, in my marriage. I wanted so desperately to believe this nightmare would end. But each morning I awoke to the same suffocating reality. I was barely holding on, barely able to keep the pieces of myself from falling apart completely. One night, I gathered the courage to ask him the question that had haunted me for months. "Why?" I whispered, my voice barely audible. "What did I do wrong?" He looked at me, his gaze cold, detached. "You're always so busy with the kids, the house," he replied, as if the weight of our lives had been solely my burden to bear. I needed something for myself. His words stung, twisting the knife of betrayal even deeper. I felt the anger and heartbreak rising within me, the bitterness of years sacrificed, dreams put aside, and ambitions left behind. I wanted to scream, to make him see how much I had given up for us, for him. But as he stood there, blaming me for his choices, I felt a wave of guilt wash over me. It was as though everything I had done for our family was being erased, as if my sacrifices had never mattered. The guilt took root in my heart, suffocating me, making me question my worth, my choices, everything I thought I had known. In the days that followed, I poured all of myself into our children, hoping it would fill the void left by Daniel's betrayal. I woke before dawn, making breakfasts, packing lunches, helping with homework, putting on a brave face for them, even as I felt myself crumbling inside. Nights were the worst, when the silence of our home became overwhelming, and I lay in bed, replaying memories of happier times, questioning every choice, every moment that had led us here. The woman I once was, vibrant and full of dreams, felt like a stranger. I no longer recognized the face staring back at me in the mirror. I had become a shadow of myself, going through the motions, barely able to hold on. I knew I had lost a part of myself, but I didn't know how to get her back. I felt trapped, afraid that I would never find the strength to break free from the life that was slowly suffocating me. One evening, my phone rang. It was Sarah, a friend who had noticed my absence. She insisted we meet, and for the first time in months, I found myself opening up. As I poured out my fears and pain, she listened, her presence a comfort I hadn't realized I needed. "Leah," she said softly, her eyes filled with compassion, "you deserve happiness too. You can't keep holding on to someone who isn't holding on to you." Her words resonated deeply, planting a seed of hope in my heart. For the first time, I allowed myself to imagine a life without Daniel. A life where I wasn't weighed down by betrayal and loneliness. I didn't know how or when, but I felt a spark reignite within me, a reminder of the strength I had long forgotten. That glimmer of hope became a lifeline, a reminder that I still had a choice, a path forward, even if it was terrifying to take. In the darkest moments, my children became my guiding light, the source of my strength. Lily would wrap her arms around me, whispering, "Mom, I love you so much," and Ethan's laughter, his innocent smile, filled the silence in ways I could never have imagined. They didn't fully understand what was happening, but their presence was a constant reminder of what truly mattered. Watching them, I knew I couldn't let them grow up in a home filled with resentment and silence. They deserved a mother who was strong, who showed them that love meant respect and self-worth. Every hug, every smile, every small act of kindness from them was like a lifeline, pulling me out of the depths of despair. I owed it to them to find my way back to myself, to show them that even in heartbreak, there was hope, resilience, and the promise of better days. I knew I couldn't keep pretending. One evening as he walked through the door, I gathered all the courage I had left. "We need to talk," I said firmly, my voice steady. I told him I deserved the truth, that I couldn't live in this half-life of lies and silence anymore. He looked at me, caught off guard by my strength, by the fire he hadn't seen in me for so long. The conversation erupted, voices raised, emotions raw, years of hurt spilling out in a torrent. But I didn't hold back. For the first time, I told him how deeply he had hurt me, how his betrayal had torn my life apart. As the tears fell, I felt a strange sense of release, as though I was shedding a weight I had carried for too long. By the end of that night, I knew there was no going back. I had reclaimed my voice, my worth, and I knew, no matter what happened next, I would be okay. Making the decision to separate from Daniel was the hardest choice I had ever faced. The weight of it sat heavy in my heart, the realization that I would be letting go of everything familiar, of a life I had once cherished. It felt like I was abandoning a dream, walking away from the family we had built. But I knew I couldn't stay and continue losing myself. The pain of separation felt almost insurmountable, yet it was coupled with an undercurrent of relief, like breaking free from invisible chains. I took each step with a trembling heart, filing the paperwork, finding a job, and finally, sharing the news with our children. Telling Lily and Ethan was heartbreaking, their innocent faces reflecting confusion and sadness. But I held them close, promising that no matter what, they would always be my heart, my strength, and my purpose. I knew that as difficult as it was, this choice would pave the way for a better life, for them and for me. The days that followed were filled with uncertainty. Suddenly, I was alone, responsible for everything in a way I hadn't been before. Every small decision felt monumental, every night longer than the one before. But each morning, I would wake up, get dressed, and take on the day. I threw myself into my work, into caring for my children, into rebuilding a life from the ground up. There were moments when fear would creep in, whispering doubts and reminding me of the comfort I had left behind. But I learned to silence those thoughts, reminding myself that comfort had come at too high a price. I was slowly learning to trust myself again, to embrace the unknown. The uncertainty felt overwhelming at times, but it was no longer terrifying. Instead, it became a blank canvas, a chance to create a life on my own terms, to discover who I was beyond the confines of my marriage. In the midst of rebuilding, I found small pockets of joy. I picked up a paintbrush for the first time in years, letting colors and emotions flow onto the canvas. I began meeting with friends again, finding comfort in laughter and shared memories. I took Lily and Ethan on weekend adventures, exploring local parks and trying new foods, watching their faces light up with wonder. Each of these moments, though small, felt like pieces of myself coming back to life. The laughter, the freedom to make my own choices, and the joy of rediscovering things I loved filled me with a new sense of purpose. I took Lily and Ethan on weekend adventures, exploring local parks and trying new foods, watching their faces light up with wonder. Each of these moments, though small, felt like pieces of myself coming back to life. The laughter, the freedom to make my own choices, and the joy of rediscovering things I loved filled me with a new sense of purpose. I began to see that my life could be beautiful again, that happiness was not a distant memory but something I could actively create. Slowly, my heart began to heal, and for the first time in a long time, I allowed myself to dream of a future where I was truly happy. There were still nights when the sadness resurfaced, pulling me into the depths of heartbreak and regret. I would lie awake, haunted by memories of what once was and the dreams we had built together. Some days, it felt like I was drowning, overwhelmed by the weight of loss and betrayal. But I reminded myself that healing wasn't a straight path. I had to allow myself to feel the pain, to confront the emotions I had buried. I leaned on therapy, journaling through the darkest thoughts, letting the grief and anger flow onto the pages. I gave myself permission to mourn, to cry, to remember. I learned that healing required facing the pain head-on, allowing it to exist, but also knowing that it didn't define me. Each tear shed, each night of sadness brought me closer to acceptance, closer to understanding that the pain, too, was part of my journey. As the months passed, I began to notice a change in myself. I was no longer the woman who had once felt small, afraid, and trapped. I was standing taller, speaking my mind, and trusting my instincts. I found strength within myself that I never knew existed. I looked back at the woman who had endured so much, who had faced heartbreak and betrayal, and I felt a deep sense of pride. My journey hadn't been easy, but I was stronger for it. I was learning to love and respect myself in a way I hadn't before. My sense of self-worth grew, fueled by the knowledge that I had survived, that I had rebuilt my life from ashes. I no longer sought validation or approval. I was learning to be my own source of strength, to stand confidently in my own truth, knowing that I was enough. One day, I found myself in a chance conversation with someone new. He was kind, thoughtful, and genuinely interested in who I was. Not as a mother, not as someone's ex-wife, but as Leah, a woman with dreams, aspirations, and a heart that was healing. I felt a warmth I hadn't felt in years, a reminder that love could exist without pain, without betrayal. We took things slowly, building a connection based on friendship and trust. I was cautious, afraid of opening myself up again, but I allowed myself to explore the possibility. This new relationship wasn't about filling a void. It was about companionship, about two people coming together with respect and understanding. For the first time, I understood that love could be gentle, nurturing, and kind. It was a new beginning, a chance to experience love without losing myself. As my journey continued, I realized that my experience had given me a purpose beyond my own healing. I began to volunteer, supporting women who were facing similar struggles, sharing my story to offer hope and resilience. I wanted Lily and Ethan to see the power of forgiveness, of strength, of rebuilding. I wanted them to understand that life's challenges didn't define us. Our responses did. I found fulfillment in helping others, in being a voice for those who felt voiceless. I started small groups, reaching out to women who needed support, reminding them that they, too, were capable of rising from the ashes. My own story became a testament to resilience, a legacy I was building not only for myself but for my children, showing them that no matter what life threw at them, they had the strength to rise. As I stood at the edge of this new chapter, I made a promise to myself. I would never again lose sight of who I was. I had walked through the depths of despair and come out on the other side stronger, wiser, and more compassionate. I would embrace each day as a gift, a chance to live fully and authentically. I promised to cherish my worth, to live with purpose, to be the mother, friend, and woman I had always aspired to be. My story was no longer one of pain but of resilience, of growth, of self-discovery. And as I looked toward the future, I knew that whatever lay ahead, I would face it with courage and an open heart. I was finally at peace, grounded in the knowledge that I was enough, that I was whole, and that I had reclaimed my life. This was my journey, my promise, and my future. One that was filled with hope, joy, and endless possibility.